join us before we get started here.
Once you join, let us know you're watching. Tell us where you're watching from.
There's a few people hopping on there.
Hi, Emily and Aaron. Lori, yeah, Florida and South Dakota.
Wow. Caitlin from Arkansas.
Louisiana.
Aaron says it's hot in Florida. I can imagine.
These are good products for those in the
Yeah.
South.
I think it's hot here too, but I haven't been outside.
It's pretty warm.
It's been in the 90s in Oregon even already. So.
Right.
It's been actually chilly here. Like this week,
Yeah.
It's starting to warm up a little bit. We've had a lot of rain.
Us too. Cold and rainy, chilly and rainy anyway.
Yeah. Yep. Hot, hot, hot. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a special guest with us today. Rachel is with us from Weaver Leather, and she's going to talk about our CoolAid product.
And as usual, make sure that you get all the questions that you might have in the comments. Today, at the end of our segment, we will be giving away a couple of prizes. We will have two winners. One person is going to win a CoolAid blanket, and the other is going to win their choice of either the hock wraps or the polos. So make sure you get all those questions in there, and or just say hello, because two of you commenters are going to win a prize. And with that, Rachel, we're going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And good afternoon to everyone who's joining us. I want to talk about the CoolAid products. CoolAid is a animal cooling and recovery product. We make a blanket, we make a neck wrap, we have a hock wrap, and then polo wraps. So I'll talk about the neck wrap and the blanket first. The technology of CoolAid is that it provides a cooling effect by a proprietary weave in the fabric. So if you look up close, this is what the blanket material and the neck wrap material look like. They're pretty thin, as you can see. They do have a lining, but you see it has a little bit of a perforation in the weave. It's very soft. The idea is that it's not any kind of chemical or anything that is going to wash out or wear off of the product. It's going to provide a cooling effect by wicking the moisture either away from your animal if he's sweaty or wet, or if you wet the product yourself. As the moisture evaporates from the material, it's going to also provide a cooling effect. So this will provide a cooling effect as long as it is still wicking moisture from the animal or the fabric itself is drying. Once it's dry, it no longer has a cooling effect, but to reactivate the cooling, you just simply get it wet, shake it out. You can throw it back on the animal. So for the neck wrap and the blanket in particular, the way I would most recommend use of this product, like I said, is particularly in the heat. If you work your horse, they're hot, they're sweaty, you want to lower their temperature safely, gradually. You can just put this neck wrap or blanket dry on the sweaty animal, and similar to a polar fleece cooler that we are all used to using, it is going to speed up the drying of the animal, but it's also going to provide the additional cooling benefit. Studies have shown it can lower the temperature by up to 30%. So again, a lot of factors depend on the climate you're in, the horse's body temperature at the time of applying the product. If you wet the product, you're going to get a little bit of an additional cooling effect on it. One thing I would note, however, particularly with the blankets, you can absolutely wet these and put them on a warm horse. And like I said, have a little bit of an added cooling benefit. I would just use common sense and caution. If you have an extremely overheated, hot, heavily worked horse, it's kind of similar to the way we would bring our horse into the bath stall and cool him down with the hose. We don't usually just turn the cold water on and hit his back with cold water right away. We start at the legs, maybe go up to the belly, the chest, and again, we're trying to cool the horse gradually. So if you are going to get the blanket wet or even the neck wrap wet, again, just use common sense. How hot is your horse? Try not to shock his body, just like anything else. So that's what I would say for the neck wrap and the blanket. The leg wraps, we make a hock wrap. The hock wrap can be used again for cooling, but it has some more added therapeutic benefits. We also make a polo wrap. They're both made out of the same fabric, the same technology. And I'll show you the fabric on the leg wraps and hock wrap up close. You can see the perforation's a little bigger. If you look at the inside lining, this actually has a little more substance to the material. It also has some stretch. The idea behind the leg wrap products is that you get the benefit of the cooling. You can wet these. You can actually stick them in the freezer, and I'll give a little more instructions on. And you also get the added benefit of compression. So compression aids in healing, aids in pain relief, helps to reduce inflammation. So the compression combined with the cooling effect is going to give you even more therapeutic properties. So these come, your hock wraps come in a small, medium, and large. The measurements are listed on Valley Vet's website, so you can kind of get a better idea of what size you might need for your horse. It's a Velcro closure, hook and loop. It sticks right to the material itself. They're very easy to use. Same with the polo wrap. The polo wrap has the hook and loop on the inside tab, and again, sticks to itself. The biggest question I get with both of these products is, okay, I got them wet. They're frozen. I can't pull them apart. People complain that they're just so completely stuck together after they're frozen with water that they have trouble pulling them apart and applying them to the animal. So here's a polo wrap that I froze. This is personal preference. I got the polo wrap wet, just ran it under cold water. You can stuff it down in a bucket, whatever. I wrung it out very thoroughly. And I really think that's the key. I've experimented with these myself. They hold a lot of water by the nature of the material itself. So it's very easy to have a pretty waterlogged leg wrap that you think is pretty well wrung out. You stick it in a baggie, you throw it in your freezer, and maybe it stays in there for a week. Maybe, if it's just a few hours, you're usually not going to have too many problems with it. If it stays in there for the day or a couple days, you can end up with a block of ice with the leg wrap inside it. So wring it out well. I've had this frozen overnight, and it's only been out of the freezer now maybe 10 minutes. You can see the ice crystals on it. But it's definitely, I would have no problem wrapping my horse's leg with this. And again, this is personal preference. After I got it wet and I wrung out all the water, I rolled it inside out like I would use to wrap a leg. So again, use it like any other polo. I would wrap, tendon in, firm pressure. Again, because it has a little bit of stretch, don't go crazy and wrap it too tight. But the nice thing, again, with the polos is if you're home and you want to use it for therapeutic properties and you want to use it like an ice boot almost, throw it in the freezer, leave it in there, make sure it's wrung out. You can keep it in a baggie. It can stay in the freezer for quite some time. Take it out when you're ready to use it, wrap the leg. Typically for icing, the recommendations are the same as anything. You know, maybe we recommend icing for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And then, you know, taking it off. I've been known to put ice boots on a horse's leg and probably leave it for more than 30 minutes and go about my chores in the barn. But you know, that's really how this is designed. The added benefit of the Cool Core technology in the CoolAid products is that even on a hot day, as this begins to thaw, even if you had it in the freezer, it's going to continue to have a cooling effect on your horse until it's dry. So the other thing I like about these is you're at a horse show, you're traveling, you're trail riding, whatever you're doing, or you just keep a pair in your tack room, and you want to get that cooling effect. You want to lower the temperature on the horse's leg, similar to like when we just do cold water, you know, hose on the horse's leg. You can just get these wet, get them wet, dunk them in a bucket of water, wring them out, roll them up, wrap your horse's leg, and you're still going to have the cooling property of the CoolAid technology without having to have access to a freezer or ice or anything like that. So these are great. They're versatile. The hock wrap, I use the exact same way. The hock wraps are designed so that your straps, when you strap them, you're pulling towards the outside. So if you're putting these on, you want to see the label facing out on both boots. And again, you have the versatility. Get them wet, they're going to have a cooling effect. Otherwise, leave them in your freezer until you're ready to use them. When you are done using them, again, obviously, common sense. If you pull them off the horse's leg and they're still a little damp, just let them hang out to dry and then store them, unless you're going to get them wet and freeze them again. They're all fully washable. The blankets, the neck wrap, the polo wraps, and the hock wraps, throw them in the washer. You can wash them as many times. It will not affect the technology of the products. The leg wraps, the polo wraps come in 2 sizes. They come in medium and large. The biggest difference, the width is the same, it's 4 inches. The medium, I believe, is a 60-inch wrap, and the large is a 72-inch wrap. As far as sizing on the neck wrap, that's going to come also in a medium and a large. And again, you can look at the dimensions on the website to try to decide what fits your horse best. The blanket themselves, they come in sizes 72 to 84. All of these products come in 3 colors. So you have the blue, which is shown here, and in my neck wrap. It's a pretty kind of hurricane blue, if you're familiar with some of our old halter colors. And then we have a nice bright pink. And then we also have a very nice neutral tan. So those colors come in all products. And I think that's it on the technology of the product. Do you guys have any questions?
Mm-hmm. Emily had a question, and you just touched on it a little bit. Can you wash this and dry them? You said you could throw them in the washing machine. So what's the best way to dry them?
So I have done both because I was curious. What I can't tell you, I would, let me actually see if what we put on the tag itself. I didn't notice any shrink when I dried one of the neck wraps. Yeah. It says machine wash cold, do not bleach, tumble dry low. So I tend to hang stuff dry for the barn more often than not. But like I said, I didn't notice any shrink on putting anything in the dryer. And I also can't tell you that I even washed it in cold.
Okay, here's a couple of questions that kind of go hand in hand. Caitlin was wondering if there was a time limit to leave any of these products on, and Emily wanted to know if you could travel with them on, and if so, for how long?
Again, the cooling property whether you froze the product, like if you're talking about traveling with a leg wrap on, like a polo wrap or a hock wrap, absolutely, you're going to have the added benefit of the compression. So assuming you've wrapped correctly and safely, if you throw the horse in the trailer and it's been frozen or wet, the cooling effect is only going to last as long as the product stays wet. So I could see a polo wrap maybe staying wet a little longer just because there's going to be a little bit of overlap. But again, I don't believe you're going to have that like icing effect for as long, because the icing property is just, you're freezing it, it's saturated, and as it thaws, it's going to lose some of that icing. But the additional cooling effect will last as long as it's wet. If you're hauling a horse and you just want to throw the blanket or the neck wrap on to try to help keep them cool, especially if they get hot and sweaty or nervous in the trailer, absolutely, they're great for that. I don't see a scenario where you could have it on for too long. The only thing I would think about on the blanket and the neck wrap is if you're maybe hauling in cooler temperatures. If you've ever been in the back of a horse trailer with some windows or slats open on a cool day, there's a lot of wind that comes through. If you have a horse that's really sweaty or really overworked, again, I would use common sense. Just in like, okay, do I want my wet horse on a cool fall day having cold air blowing on them, and I know they're sweaty and wet, and have this additional cooling blanket on? But if it's a hot day and it's summer and you're looking for the added ways to keep your horse cool in the trailer, these are safe to use.
Kelly said, could you put the blanket on them and keep watering them as you go to the paddock as we do now?
You mean watering the blanket itself?
I'm guessing
That's what I'm
she
assuming.
means.
I mean, whatever way if you want to put the blanket on the horse and then hose them down to get the blanket wet, you're going to have a really heavy saturated blanket. So sometimes it's better to maybe wet the blanket, wring it out a little bit, and then throw it on. That way you just don't have that heavy dripping, sopping wet blanket on the horse.
Okay.
The other added benefit too of this material is the UPF. So this also offers sun protection, which is nice.
Elizabeth wanted to know how to fit the blanket to your horse.
As in how to measure your
Yeah,
horse.
how to measure,
size.
what size you need, yes.
Okay, so all of our blankets and our coolers, our stable sheets, everything we have, we use the same standard tool for measuring. I would take a rope or soft measuring tape, measure from the center of your horse's chest around the widest part of his hip to the center of his tail.
All right. Emily asked, can we ride bareback with this on?
You can. It is a slippery material, so I don't know if I can.
At your own risk.
I don't see any danger in it. Again, if you ride with a stable sheet or a fly sheet on your horse, bareback right now, I don't see any harm other than it's got maybe a little bit of texture in the perforation. But it's a pretty smooth fabric.
She kind of answered
How long?
those. We had a question about if this can be worn in the stall wet. Is that okay?
Yeah, again, common sense. So if you know that when you put your horse in his stall, stopping wet, he's going to roll, then if the horse is safe to tie, I would probably tie him. If your horse just stands there and munches on some hay, then by all means. I mean, I would use it like I use any other cooler, on my horses. I'm not afraid to put this on them, let them stand in their stall and munch some hay until I think they're dry and cooled off.
Wear it with a turnout. Jenna wanted to know if you could wear this blanket with a turnout or not.
So I think you could. I will tell you, I have not tried that. I don't think we have anything, written or tested on that right now. There are some winter blankets coming out with a similar, using this similar technology that's actually going to help retain body heat. But as far as just putting this under a horse, like if your horse maybe tends to get sweaty under a winter blanket, I could see it helping to maybe wick the moisture. But honestly, if your horse is sweating under his winter blanket, then you probably have too heavy of a blanket on him. And because this works by cooling as it transfers moisture and the evaporation, I would think a winter blanket on top of it would probably impede the technology in some way.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're looking for a blanket liner, this probably isn't your blanket liner.
Okay.
Emily asked, can they roll with this on or will it mess it up?
Well, again, it won't hurt the technology of the product if it's wet and your horse decides to roll in it. It's going to be covered in sawdust or dirt or whatever else. And if your horse is really talented, you know, I'm sure they can find a way to get it off or displace it anyway.
Okay. Can you go over the sizes one more time for us? We had one question about sizing again.
Sure, sizing on the blanket? Or
The blankets and neck wraps.
Blankets and neck wraps.
okay, blankets sizes 72 to 84. Neck wraps come in a medium and a large. And so the neck wraps, think of neck length and chest circumference. So medium is a 30-inch neck and a 58 chest. And the large is a 38-inch neck and a 70-inch chest. And then again, your hock wraps are small, medium, and large, and the polos are medium and large. And the biggest difference in the polo is the length. It's either 60 inches on your medium, 72 inches on your large. They're both a 4-inch wrap.
Jennifer had a question. Can you use poultice under the leg wraps?
I probably wouldn't recommend that. I would use your, use your cooling technology just like you would an ice boot or a wrap. But if you're looking for like a standing wrap over top of your poultice, I would probably use a traditional standing wrap.
Mm-hmm. Jeanette had asked if they get stiff at all when they're drying, or do they stay flexible? I'm assuming she's talking about the wraps.
Yeah, so far for me, the wraps stay flexible. I mean, the product when it's dry is super flexible. So as long as I've been talking to you guys, this is the one I had in the freezer. It's definitely still wet. It's super cold still, you know, if I just put it on my arm. But no, they stay soft and flexible. I think the only way they get really stiff is if they get really dirty. So maybe a lot of sweat or something. But again, throw them in the washer.
Would that one be good? Donna asked, would these help with enlarged hocks? She's fostering a retired racehorse who has enlarged hocks.
Again, not knowing what the cause of the enlarged hocks are, it's going to give you cooling properties and it's going to give you some compression. So I would probably talk to your veterinarian, see how they recommend working something like the hock wrap into whatever therapies your veterinarian recommends for the horse. But it certainly wouldn't hurt. Again, I would just know that this can provide some compression. So, you know, use common sense when you're wrapping it, depending on how tight and what's actually causing the inflammation. But again, it's a therapeutic product. Not, you know, it's not necessarily going to cure the source of the inflammation.
Right. Does the blanket have belly straps, and what type of closures are on the blankets?
I can open one up for you. Probably won't be able to give you as good of a picture on here. It's pretty traditional closures on the belly of the blanket. So it's just your normal belly straps with these kind of closures. And then at the chest, you've got like a spring loaded snap like this. And then you have two D-rings that you can hook it to. So you can kind of adjust the size. This shows you I told them I wouldn't be able to find the camera. Here we go. So this shows you the front of the blanket. And then you also have a little bit of a fleece piece sewn in at the withers to prevent rubbing and just make it a little more comfortable. And then you have the back leg, like the quarter straps at the back, like on a regular blanket. And those, it looks like those could be removed actually, if you chose to.
Yeah. Okay.
Does the blanket have hind leg straps? Maybe she just covered that.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So you've got your two hind leg straps, and then your two belly straps, which you can cross underneath.
Emily had asked if you could put the blanket on right away after a ride, or say a workout.
Yeah. Again, the point I would just want to drive home on the blankets is that use common sense when cooling the horse down. So if the horse is super hot and really overheated, do your traditional methods of, walking the horse, cooling them down a little bit. Then, depending on the temperature, again, if it's an 80-degree, 90-degree day or higher, and the horse is sopping wet and, you want to just start to regulate that temperature down. What's great is you can get these products wet, bring them out, put them on the horse. It's going to provide a little bit of additional cooling, but you can also put the product on dry, and just the dry neck wrap or blanket on top of a really sweaty horse or horse you may be already bathed is going to provide additional cooling properties. So two choices. I would just use common sense. What I don't recommend is freezing the blanket, like we talked about the leg wraps, and pulling it out of your freezer and throwing it on a super overheated horse. I mean, yes, it's going to cool them down, but again, knowing how fickle horses are and just wanting to use common sense and caution, similar to what we do when we have a hose in our hand, I would just use common sense in how how rapidly you want to start to cool that horse down. Gradual is always best. What's great about these is that unlike a polo, like a fleece cooler in the summer, yep, your horse is sweaty. Maybe you don't have access to a hose. You're not going to want to throw that fleece on a horse on a hot day because, yeah, it's going to help dry him, but it's also going to provide some body heat. Whereas this is going to cool him and dry him and again, help bring that body temperature down. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yes. Any more?
Sure, no more questions, I don't think.
Jessica had asked how durable the blankets are.
So far, they're pretty durable. Like I said, there's reinforcement at all the high stress points. Typical really for, I would say, any blanket, again, is that, I wouldn't just put the blanket on, turn the horse loose in his stall. I mean, they're really not designed for that. These are designed to be used as you need them. It's, this isn't your stable sheet or your turnout fly sheet or anything like that. So they're durable. They're stitched well, they're reinforced at all the stress points. I've had no problems with the products personally. And as long as we've been selling it so far, this isn't a highly returned item.
When you throw these in the washing machine, can you use soap on them like your normal soap?
Yeah, I just use like a free and clear detergent. That's typically what I use on horse stuff anyway. I did not use fabric softener. I wouldn't recommend probably using a fabric softener. I typically don't on any kind of performance fabric, even if it's just for sports. So just use a good detergent. Obviously these have color, so no bleach. And like I said, the directions say to wash in cold. I did not. I had no problem. So.
Okay, perfect.
I would recommend following the directions though and washing cold.
All right. Are we ready to draw a winner?
Wraps up
Two
the
winners,
questions.
actually.
So
Did you have anything else to add, Rachel, before we draw winners today?
I don't. You know, if you have any additional questions, always reach out to Valley Vet or you know, interact on one of our social pages with Weaver Leather. We're always there to try to help. We can get all the answers that Valley Vet needs also, and they're very knowledgeable on the products. So, no.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's draw some winners. First winner is going to win a blanket. So,
all right, the first winner is Tina Perry Birch.
woohoo! Congratulations. And then our second winner is going to win their choice of either hock wraps or polos, so whichever you prefer.
And the winner of that is Elizabeth Hartley.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to you both.
Okay, just a couple of things before we leave you today. We want to remind you about our sweepstakes.
We have our Off to the Races sweepstakes. It's going on right now, and it ends on June 18th. So get entered now. Don't forget.
All right. Make sure you check out all these awesome products on valleyvet.com. We have all of the equine CoolAid products available in the 3 colors she talked about. So come check them out. Thank you, Rachel, so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks everyone